Hello. Um, this is our third project in class, the second Excel project that we're going to focus on. And what we're going to do here is use our forecast of our sales numbers to go ahead and forecast a couple of one balance sheet item and our future income statement. One of the things that oftentimes gets missed in the capital budget is the impact of the capital project on income statement balance sheet items. In particular, we're going to focus on the idea of working capital. And our definition of working capital is going to be total current assets minus total current liabilities. Just the definition we're going to use. Sometimes working capital excludes cash and cash equivalents, but this is going to be our working capital that we're going to be a function of. And for a capital budget that may be increasing sales, you got to expect that there's going to be an increase in inventory associated with it. You need additional inventory to support the sales. Now, it may not be finished goods. It could be work in process, known as WIP. You buy new pieces of equipment. You also need to buy maintenance items associated with it, spare parts, replacement parts, things like that are associated with working capital. In addition, your higher sales are going to go ahead and increase your accounts payable. These can be major issues for corporations that they need to forecast so they can prepare financial methods to manage it. So, for example, to deal with higher accounts payable, you may need to increase your credit line at the bank or at a bank or some other financial institution in order to fund the time between you actually ship the product and they get it and use it and the time that they actually pay you for the product. And of course, you're going to need to buy material, raw goods, other things that are going to have to come in order for you to make the product, because you have an increase in sales. Those receivables are going to go up. So what we want to do is create a forecast of the income statement, and associated with that, take a look at how it's going to impact our working capital. And for that, we're going to use an Excel function or an Excel module referred to as scenario analysis. And while mentally you can think about what's going on in the scenario analysis method, even though it's a bit cumbersome, does it all automatically, it takes care of a lot of the formatting issues associated with it, and it can be used on multiple aspects of income statements, balance sheets, and even other projects. So our first step is to go ahead and get our income information, our balance sheet information. I'm going to go ahead, I've already got mine, but I'm going to go ahead and redo it so you can follow me. So we're going to start by creating a new sheet. We're going to come here to our daily finance website. So I'm just going to type in, to get there, Bing or Google daily finance. The daily finance website, my stock is UTX, so I'm just going to type in my ticker symbol. And then I'm going to come down here to financial filings and then my financial statements. Now, I thought about doing this, and you can actually do this in the Words database using CompuStat data, but it's a bit of a task. I started doing it that way, and I decided that this project was losing focus. It was too much about what data to pull from CompuStat as opposed to what to do. So we're just going to use this website. There's other financial websites that have this information, but this one's just pretty easy to get hold of and get it into Excel. Unfortunately, there's no little download button, but anyway, so what I'm going to do here is, this is my income statement annual. So I'm just going to highlight the data that I'm interested in. Go ahead and grab it all, Control C, come to my new file, and Control V to paste it in. There's going to be some formatting problems that we're going to have to address. The first one is to You'll notice that these are wrap texts. We want to get out of that wrap text so that we can see things a lot more simply. We'll come down here just before preferred dividends and take the wrap text off. Everything below preferred dividends, we're going to go ahead and delete. We're not using that in our calculation. Take the merge and the wrap off that one as well. And then, so I can see what's actually in here, I'm going to put my cursor in. Notice how the cursor changes right on the edge, and double click. That way everything's going to fit in nice and easily. And then you can do other format changes as well. For example, we have sales, cost of goods sales. The difference between those two is our gross operating profit. And you might want to fill the sum groups as a separate highlighted tab. All right, so that is our income information that we're looking for. And I'll just change my sheet name by double clicking on it to income. And now we also want our balance sheet information. We'll go back to our daily finance website, click on balance sheet, and we're just going to highlight again, grab everything that's there, Control C to get it, and then come over here and go ahead, Control V to put it in. Same little deal. We want to take our wrap text out, and I'm going to do it down here as well. And wrap text. When we see these, it just means the column's not big enough, so we can highlight these guys, do a column width, and increase the column, say 10. Now everybody's fitting in there nice and easily. Alright, so that's the data download that we're looking to do, and the rough formatting. You can see on mine, on my income statement, I've gone ahead and for gross profit and my EBIT and my net income and my total net income and normalized income. I've done those subtractions. Also on income, you'll notice down here that we are a little bit low. These numbers are actually associated with this underlying box. What you do is highlight those three guys and go ahead and, or four, and take the merge cells off. Go ahead and take the wrap text off while we're at it, and then we can get rid of these. This normalized income is net income from continuing operations minus certain special income or special charges that happen. They're typically considered one-time events. Alright, so that's our income. Our next statement that we're looking, or next step that we're looking for, is get our percentage income, or percentage income statement. In this case, what we want to do is sales go up or sales go down, we would expect our cost of goods sold to move up and down in accordance with it. So the assumption is that cost of goods sold is roughly equal percentage of what the sales are. So you can see here we're at 70%, 70.13, 70.4, 69, so it's fairly constant. In order to do this, we want to set up our actual 4 columns, and we want to copy over our sales data, and then this one is going to be the percentage, so it's simply equal to sales divided by COGS divided by our sales. And we'll go ahead and format that into a percentage. I'm going to add a couple of places to it. Now, drag it across 2, 3, 4. Now we want to drag this row down, but as we do that, we want G2 to always remain the same. In other words, we want to go B3, 4, 5, etc., but we always want to divide by sales. So we'll hit F4 to lock that one in, do that for each one of the columns. Double click F4 and return. Now we're ready to go ahead and drag this guy down. All right, so these are all of our percentages that we're interested in, and these are going to be what we use to forecast. Now, we're actually going to forecast 2012 and 2013, even though there's data available, just so that we can also analyze how accurate the forecast or inaccurate the forecast is. So we're going to do our forecasting based on the average of 2011 and 2010. So what we're going to do here, say this is equal to the average, and we'll highlight these two guys. And then once again, go ahead and drag that down to cover our data. Now, our forecast statements are going to be based on our actual forecast sales. So we're forecasting 59 billion and 61 billion in the forecast, and our true values are going to be 57 and 62. So where do I get these two particular numbers from? Well, I'm going to come here to my, for example, I could do my linear table, linear projection, and I have forecast values of 59.35 and 61.696. So those are the two values. Come over here to our income forecast. Here are two underlying numbers that we're interested in. You're going to want to use the forecast that you think is actually the best number that you're interested in. If you do a log, if your best analysis is the log forecast, so this is just a straight log forecast. This is my confidence interval for high and low. So if you're doing the log forecast, we're actually forecasting for 2012 11.07 and 11.13, so we need to exponentiate those numbers. In other words, this is going to be equal to exponential of 11.07 or 64 billion, and then we'll drag that one down again, and 68 billion. So those become our high and low sales numbers that we're going to be interested in. I'm going to go ahead and just play with that. Just do a Control C, and then I'm going to come back to my forecast table. I'm going to dump these guys in. Now what I'm going to do is paste, and I just want to get the numbers, not the equation. So this is just the actual number associated with it. And this one is our 2012 forecast, and this is our 2013 forecast. So a little formatting, and commas in, and this gives us all of our percentages that we're interested in. So we will be forecasting 68 billion in sales, or 64 billion in sales, and then 44 or 47 billion in terms of our actual cost of goods sold. Gross operating profit becomes 20 billion versus 19 billion, etc. All right, in our balance sheet, we're interested in our working capital numbers. So our working capital is simply going to be equal to our, organize that a little bit better, simply going to be equal to our current assets, which is going to be total current assets, and we're going to subtract from that our current liabilities. So this represents our working capital position. And then we want to express our working capital as a percentage of sales. Working capital should, in fact, move up and down as a percentage of sales. So our function becomes the actual working capital divided by the income for that particular year. So we're forecasting the actual was 10, 10.9, 12.27, and 10.67. Okay. So in terms of our building, we would just say that this is equal to, and click on our working capital, and then we're going to divide that by the income that actually occurred in that year. Go ahead and do the percentage, add 2 decimal points, and drag it over. And again, we're doing our forecasting based on, this is going to be actual of 2013. Don't hit page down. I don't know if the commas or the decimal points. Matter of fact, I'm just going to cancel that. We're just going to highlight all the cells, make sure they're all formatted correctly. We want a number with nothing after it and no comma separator. So 2013, 2012, 2011, and 2010. Our average working capital is simply equal to the average. And again, we're using 2011, 2010 for our forecast. An individual company is going to have a higher or larger percentage, or I'm sorry, a larger data set to work with. So instead of just dealing with 4 years, there might be 15 or 20 years to work with. And of course, more advanced techniques rather than a simple average. And conditional expectation, meaning a regression, can be run. All right, so this is how we've calculated our working capital and our percentage of working capital, and then the average. Our forecast working capital simply becomes the income times the average that we're using. Okay, so in this case it's 11.45. Just, you know, in your workbook, it's just going to equal, rather than use the average, I'm typing it again here. I'm going to make it a percentage point, 11.45. The scenario analysis sometimes has problems. So our forecast for working capital is going to equal our forecast income. I haven't done the forecast income yet. Sorry. Forecast income. So our forecast income is in fact our, as I did over, hit the wrong button. Our forecast income is in fact the forecast that we're getting from our regression that we selected, multiplied out. Okay, so we're taking our, go ahead and grab these two guys, Control C, and then just in terms to show you the steps for building, this is our forecast and our income level. Open these guys up so you can see them. And then for each one of these items, our forecast value is going to equal the sales, which is, we're going to lock in as F4, multiplied by our expected percentage. And again here, it's going to equal our sales, forecast sales times our expected percentage. And then we would go ahead and drag these guys down to cover. I don't think I hit F4 on this one. There we go. Try it again. There we go. Alright, still not right. Pretty easy. Equals percentage times our sales, F4, equals percentage times the sales, F4. There we go. And drag it down. Okay. And then again, back to our balance sheet, our forecast working capital is simply going to equal our forecast sales multiplied by our expected percentage. And we hit F4 on that one to lock it in. And we can go ahead and drag across. So this would be working capital for 2013, expected working capital for 2013, and again for 2012. Okay. Our next step is we've got our income statement and our forecast income statement and our balance sheet and our guess of what the future working capital is going to be. This only represents a mean or an average. What we want to do now is to form a sensitivity chart. So how are we getting the sensitivity chart? Well, you remember in our sales forecast model, we created a upper control limit and a lower control limit, or upper limit and low limit of expected sales based on the standard error of the model. So for the log model that I'm using as an example, and you, again, just to stress, you're going to be using whatever model has the best fit in your analysis. Then we want an upper and lower value of sales based on the upper limit and the corresponding lower limit for 2012 and 2013. So from this chart, 10.91 on the low, 11.22 on the high, 10.98 on the low, 11.29 on the high. I come over to my forecast chart. I've entered these values, just the numbers. Again, you can copy and paste them. And then in order to get, we need to get these in terms of actual dollar values. So now we exponentiate the numbers. Right? So it's just equal to EXP and pick the number. So this is my low sales and high sales for 2012 and my low sales and high sales for 2013. My average working capital is at 11.45%, and we want to form a worst case, best case scenario on this. So I'm going for minus 2% and plus 2%. It's kind of an arbitrary number that I picked. If we had a longer data series, we could calculate what the standard deviation of working capital was and do something like plus 80%, or an 80% range, plus or minus 40% probability, or plus or minus 1 standard deviation, or plus or minus 1.5 standard deviations, or any way that we wanted to look at it to find the high and low limit. For our project, you're just going to use plus or minus 2%. Or if you want to use something different, that's fine too. Anyway, our next, as we continue with our sensitivity, we just want to table these guys off so that we're showing our sales. Our low limit stays the same. We're going to pick one low limit and then look at 9.45% working capital, 11.45% working capital, and 13.45% working capital. In other words, the expected value plus or minus 2%, and then for our high sales numbers, it's the expected value plus or minus 2%. Low sales values, expected value plus or minus 2%. Alright, so this is the first step in getting everything put together. I'm going to stop the video now and start a second one where we're going to talk specifically about our overall forecast and the sensitivity analysis. So, thank you.